In October of 2012, the Education Commission of the Assembly of Catholic Bishops of Ontario approved the Ontario Catholic Elementary Curriculum Policy Document for grades 1 to 8 Family Life Education. In our Catholic elementary schools, we currently teach family life education along with religious education. For more than 20 years, we have used the Fully Alive program as our core resource to deliver our family life education curriculum. However, never before in the province of Ontario has there been a curriculum policy document to support family life education until now. The purpose of this learning module is twofold. First, it is intended to familiarize educators with the new Ontario Catholic Elementary Curriculum Policy document for grades 1 to 8 family life education. Second, it is to explore the many ways that this curriculum can assist educators to support the full development of each student. For this learning session, you might wish to have a print or electronic copy of the policy document. An electronic copy can be found at the Institute for Catholic Education website at the address on the screen. This learning module has been created using screen captures of the policy document, so if you are unable to reference a print or electronic copy at this time, you may still participate fully in this learning experience. Ontario educators are already very familiar with curriculum policy documents. In the province of Ontario, the Ministry of Education is responsible for the development of curriculum policy documents for each area of study. These documents are reviewed and revised on a cycle. When a curriculum policy document is revised, publishers will also revise their resources to align with the policy. Boards may review the resources offered by publishers and at times decide to purchase core resources for use in the system. However, as classroom teachers have heard time and again, the textbook is a resource, not the curriculum. Sometimes the resource might fail to address all of the curriculum expectations, while at other times additional information is offered that is not specified in the curriculum. Educators must always begin instructional planning with the expectations of their curriculum policy document. Until this time, this has not been the case for family life education. In our elementary Catholic schools, we use the Fully Alive program for grades 1 to 8. This is the program of the Assembly of Catholic Bishops of Ontario. Whereas in all other cases we would say that the textbook is a resource, in the case of family life education we say that the textbook is the curriculum. If you teach grade 8, your family life education curriculum is the grade 8 Fully Alive program. So, does the new curriculum policy document for family life education change this? The short answer is not really. The Family Life Education Curriculum Policy document was created using the Fully Alive program. So we have a case here where the policy document completely aligns with the program used in our schools. So one might ask, what added value does the policy document bring to the existing program? What the Family Life Education Curriculum Policy document does is align this Catholic curriculum with the Ontario Ministry of Education curriculum. The first thing that educators should notice is that it is structured just like a Ministry of Education curriculum policy document. This is easily identified by seeing the contents page of the Family Life document alongside a more recently revised ministry document, in this case the Health and Physical Education document. Take a look at the similarities between the two. Ontario Catholic educators will find that the Family Life Education document looks and feels very familiar. However, what the policy document also does is identify the ways in which family life education is not like Ministry of Education curriculum. For example, the Family Life Education curriculum identifies the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that students are expected to demonstrate. Family life education is unlike other curriculum in that, at times, there may be expectations that are not appropriate to assess. This is noted on page 10 of the document. While it is expected that students will demonstrate the knowledge and skills described by the overall expectation, it is hoped that students will demonstrate the attitudes and values associated with these expectations. These attitudes and values are part of faith and constitute the Catholic stance in the world. Because they depend on the interaction between God's Spirit and the freedom of the individual student, they cannot be evaluated or used for assessment purposes. Such cautionary faith-based statements for educators would not be found in Ministry of Education curriculum policy documents. We know that, as Catholic educators in the province of Ontario, our practice is guided by the Ministry of Education. We also know that as Catholic educators, we are called to teach with a difference. We must always consider how the direction from the ministry translates to our Catholic educational context. We use expressions like Catholic worldview or Catholic lens to describe how we make these connections. If you look at the front matter of the Family Life Policy document, you will notice that the ministry's Health and Physical Education Curriculum Policy document is quoted extensively. The Institute for Catholic Education, who published the Family Life Policy document, obtained permission from the Ministry of Education to use the Health and Phys Ed document as the backbone for its own. This is explained in the text box on page 1. Visually, the ministry material is identifiable by its indentation from the margin. Most often, the ministry excerpts are followed by the phrase, "in Ontario Catholic schools." What the Catholic educator gets then is a sense of being in dialogue with the Ministry of Education. So if the ministry says this about education, then in our Ontario Catholic schools, it looks like this, or we might understand it in this way. As you have opportunity to explore the front matter of the Family Life Policy document, note the kind of Catholic sources that are referenced. The Catholic educational community in the province of Ontario has rich documents that speak to our Catholic identity with the person of Christ and the dignity of each student at the center. Consider, for example, the vision of the learner articulated by our Ontario Catholic School graduate expectations, or the challenge for our educational system set forth by the Ontario bishops in this moment of promise, or the holistic understanding of curriculum itself as stated in Educating the Soul. The dialogue with the ministry, so to speak, in the front matter of the policy document provides an opportunity to highlight the key documents in our Ontario Catholic educational community. So, the document looks and feels like other curriculum documents, and it is aligned with the Ontario Ministry of Education while also being situated firmly in the Catholic educational context in Ontario. Let's now look specifically at what it has to say about family life education. Here is the vision of the family life education curriculum. The premise of the curriculum is based on the vision that the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values acquired in the program will benefit students throughout their lives to thrive in an ever-changing world by enabling them to acquire a Christian vision of personhood, relationships, and sexuality, and to develop the comprehension, capacity, and commitment needed to lead fully human lives. In other words, our faith has a Christian understanding of what it means to be human. Each of our students is on a journey of discovery of what it means to be fully human. As educators and through the Family Life curriculum, we support each student as they acquire the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values required to lead fully human lives. As we know, the Fully Alive program is comprised of 5 themes, and these same 5 themes occur each year from grade 1 to grade 8. The program is developmental in nature. With each successive year, the theme is explored anew with a deepening understanding. Even within a particular year, the way that the themes are presented within the program is also intentional. Each theme builds on the content of the preceding theme, and so the 5 themes are meant to be taught sequentially. When the Family Life Education Curriculum Policy document was crafted, it only made sense that the 5 themes of the Fully Alive program become the 5 strands of the Family Life Education curriculum. The following slides will briefly highlight each of the 5 strands of the Family Life curriculum. These strands are explained in detail beginning on page 12 of the policy document. The first strand of the curriculum, created and loved by God, is the foundation of the curriculum and affirms the Christian belief that each person is made in the image of a loving God. This serves as a starting point in the search for answers about human existence. Everything that is said in later strands about living in a family, learning to be a friend, the dignity of the body, commitment, and participation in human society is informed and inspired by the message of this first strand. It is within this context that the Created and Loved by God strand begins to explore this question: what does it mean to be a person? The dignity and value of each individual, the complexity of our nature, human growth and development, and above all, the wonder of being a unique and irreplaceable person whom God loved into existence are addressed in this first strand. As Created and Loved by God is considered to be the foundational strand of the Family Life Education curriculum, it is recommended that these curriculum expectations be presented first. Human existence is lived out with others. We are so deeply social by nature and so profoundly dependent on each other that we absorb our closest relationships into our very identities. We describe ourselves as husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, sisters and brothers and friends. Family and friendship are at the core of the Living in Relationships strand and are explored with increasing complexity across the 8 grades of the Family Life Education curriculum. The message of the Living in Relationships strand is intended to be both hopeful and challenging. Hopeful because learning to love is a lifelong process and there is always the opportunity for a new beginning. Challenging because the students are urged to recognize the importance of their contribution to the quality of their family life and friendships. It is recommended that Catholic educators present this strand of the Family Life curriculum following Strand A, Created and Loved by God. To be human is to be sexual. Sexuality expressed in our maleness and femaleness is an essential component of personhood. For this reason, education in sexuality is education in the whole person. The created sexual male and female strand, therefore, must be approached within the context of the previous family life strands on the value of persons and of human relationships, and of the strands that follow on commitment and social responsibility. Without this context, it is only too easy to reduce sexuality to the reproductive system and its functioning. At school, the students are taught that sexuality is one of the marvelous gifts of creation, and they are encouraged to take pride in being males and females. The Catholic understanding of marriage and family, with its stress on commitment and generosity, is also explored. The created sexual male and female strand provides an opportunity for students to examine the messages they are receiving from the culture related to sexuality, and for teachers to begin speaking about the importance of modesty and chastity. It is recommended that Catholic educators present this strand of the Family Life curriculum following Strand B, Living in Relationship. To be truly human is to be committed. The first 3 strands of the Family Life curriculum explore ideas about what it means to be a person. In this strand and in the one that follows, the focus shifts slightly and another question appears: how can we be faithful to the Christian vocation of love? The Growing in Commitment strand is concerned with the integrity of our daily lives as persons who live in relationship with one another. At each stage of living, we are challenged to commit ourselves to our present roles and relationships and to build the future. We are called to faithfulness to God and to one another. Even young children share in this calling. Young children learn to be dependable, to keep their word, and to make wise choices. In the strand Growing in Commitment, students are invited to see themselves as agents in the process of their growth toward commitment and maturity. It is recommended that Catholic educators present this strand of the Family Life curriculum following Strand C, Created Sexual Male and Female. To be human is to be a member of society. The Living in the World strand continues to explore the meaning of human life, but this time from the perspective of the responsibilities we have as members of small communities, brothers and sisters within the whole human family, and caretakers of the earth. The students are encouraged to recognize that they have a unique contribution to make to the world, one that cannot be made by anyone else. The message of the Growing in Commitment strand is an important foundation for this final strand of the Family Life Education curriculum. When we are a part of something, it demands our involvement. Just as commitment is essential for personal integrity in relationships and for achieving goals in our lives, Our membership in human society requires both participation and dedication. There is work to be done, and each person is called to build the kingdom. It is recommended that Catholic educators present this strand of family life curriculum following Strand D, Growing in Commitment. If you currently have access to the policy document, turn now to pages 122 and 123. Here you will find a learning summary chart for Strand A, Created and Loved by God. If you do not have access to the document, a portion of the chart is shown here on the slide. This learning summary chart identifies the key concepts for Strand A. The educator can easily read across the chart to see how a particular concept develops from grade 1 right through to grade 8. Learning summary charts have been developed for each of the strands of the Family Life Education curriculum. They are helpful in that they give educators an at-a-glance sense of what the students have learned in previous grades and what they will be learning. Let's take a look at a typical page of expectations in the policy document. Here is the Grade 3 Curriculum Expectations page for Strand A, Created and Loved by God, from page 74 of the policy document. Notice that the overall expectations are coded and contained in a shaded text box. The numbering of the overall expectations indicates the strand to which they belong. A numbered subheading is used to identify the group of specific expectations that relates to the particular overall expectation. The numbering of the specific expectations identifies the strand to which the expectation belongs and the overall expectation to which it relates. For example, A3.1 relates to the third overall expectation in Strand A. The specific expectations come directly from the Fully Alive program. However, there are no overall expectations in the program. And so for the policy document, the specific expectations were considered to see if they could be clustered according to type. What was determined was that there are expectations that fall more in the affective domain. These expectations often speak of recognizing or appreciating the value of something. Unlike some Ministry of Education expectations, it would be difficult or even inappropriate for educators to assess expectations of this type. For example, how would a grade 3 teacher assess the level to which a student recognizes and appreciates the variety of people in their classroom? And so, expectations from the Fully Alive program of this type were clustered under an overall expectation with the subheading Appreciating God's Goodness. This overall expectation focuses on the student's awareness and appreciation that humans have been created in the image of a loving God and therefore what it means to live according to that image. It was also noticed that there were other expectations that seemed to be statements of fact or truth or belief. These expectations most often began with the verb recognize, though there were others that used verbs such as describe or examine or explain. It was determined that expectations of this type served the purpose of exploring human nature. Grounded in an appreciation of God's goodness, these expectations focus on the student's awareness and understanding of the various ways in which humans are both unique and share a common human nature with each other. In grade 3, for example, students recognize that their talents and gifts are meant to be shared with others. Each strand affords the opportunity to explore what it means to be human from a particular aspect. Finally, there were still other expectations that went beyond simply what it means to be human. With the foundational understanding of human nature, students are expected to make relevant connections to their own lives. Many of these expectations employ verbs such as analyze or identify. These expectations were clustered under the overall expectation with a subheading reflecting, responding, and analyzing. They focus on the student's awareness and application of the unique and shared aspects of human nature in personally relevant contexts. Recall that in grade 3, students learn that humans are meant to share their gifts and talents. The specific expectation related to overall expectation 3 states that students will identify some of the talents and gifts that God has given to them. Because the Fully Live program is based on the same 5 themes and it is developmental in nature, it makes sense that the overall expectations within a strand are the same from grade 1 right through to grade 8. How the overall expectation is addressed by the specific expectations will vary from year to year. Between strands, the overall expectations are of the same type. The first overall is always devoted to appreciating God's goodness. The second overall focuses on exploring human nature, and the third overall has students reflecting, responding, and analyzing. The perspective from which these overalls are explored will vary from strand to strand. What has been discussed thus far has been the program in Family Life Education. There is much more content in the curriculum policy document, and educators are certainly encouraged to explore the document further. Again, a quick scan of the contents page will reveal the comprehensive material available to educators to support effective assessment and evaluation of student achievement, considerations for program planning, and student development and program implications by division. What follows are 3 extension activities intended to demonstrate how Family Life Education offers opportunity for cross-curricular and integrated learning. Educators might choose to work through these activities with grade-level partners, as a division, or as a whole school staff. The learning summary charts for each strand of the Family Life curriculum are used as the tool to make connections, so it is important that educators have access to these charts during the activities. They may be found on pages 122 to 133 of the policy document. It is not necessary that all strands be considered at one time. Educators could decide to focus on a particular strand and then revisit the activity throughout the year to investigate the other strands. Alternatively, a group of educators could decide to explore the 5 strands in a jigsaw fashion, with each group reporting back their findings to the whole group. Whatever strategy is used, the hope is that educators will discover the many ways that Family Life Education supports the day-to-day work of Catholic educators. The Family Life Education expectations contained in the policy document provide Catholic educators with the opportunity to develop the learning skills articulated by the ministry's Growing Success document of 2010. The development of learning skills and work habits is an integral part of a student's learning. It is expected that teachers will work with students to help them to develop the learning skills and work habits identified in Growing Success. In Ontario Catholic schools, the Family Life Education curriculum enables teachers to work with students to help them develop the learning skills and work habits necessary so that they might become more effective learners. Take some time now to explore the learning summary charts found in the policy document from pages 122 to 133. What family life expectations can you identify that could provide opportunity to also teach your students about the learning skills in personally relevant ways? After some time to explore, share your findings with your colleagues. The Ontario Equity and Inclusive Education Strategy focuses on respecting diversity, promoting inclusive education, and identifying and eliminating the discriminatory biases, systemic barriers, and power dynamics that limit the ability of students to learn, grow, and contribute to society. Building upon this strategy, Ontario's Accepting Schools Act, or Bill 13, requires school boards to prevent and address inappropriate and disrespectful behavior among students in our schools. It promotes respect and understanding for all students, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, disability, or any other factor. In Ontario Catholic schools, the expectations contained throughout the Family Life Education document provide educators with the opportunity to address a number of key issues related to equity, anti-discrimination, and inclusion. Take some time now to explore the learning summaries by strand charts found in the policy document from pages 122 to 133. What family life expectations can you identify that could provide opportunity to establish and nurture a safe, inclusive, and accepting learning environment in your classroom so that all students can learn? After some time to explore, share your findings with your colleagues. The family life education expectations contained in the policy document provide teachers with the opportunity to make cross-curricular connections and to integrate learning with both the living skills as well as the healthy living expectations of the health and physical education curriculum. The living skills expectations identify learning that helps students develop a positive sense of self, develop and maintain healthy relationships, and use critical and creative thinking processes as they set goals, make decisions, and solve problems. The Healthy Living strand of the Health and Phys Ed curriculum helps students develop an understanding of the factors that contribute to healthy development, a sense of personal responsibility for lifelong health, and a respect for their own health in relation to others and the world around them. Take some time now to explore the learning summaries by strand charts found in the policy document from pages 122 to 133. What family life expectations can you identify that could provide opportunity for educators to also address the living skills expectations or the healthy living expectations of the health and physical education curriculum? After some time to explore, share your findings with your colleagues. This now concludes this learning module exploring the Ontario Catholic Elementary Curriculum Policy Document for grades 1 to 8 Family Life Education. Thank you for your continued efforts to support our students to develop the comprehension, capacity, and commitment needed to lead fully human lives.